Hello people, it's your teacher Descalos, and today is Saturday and we're going to speak about how to speak English without an accent. So why did I decide to choose this topic today? Because like many people are worried about their accent when they speak English because they believe that it's an important part of learning a language and mastering a language. But for me personally, I think having an accent when you're speaking a language, it's totally okay. It makes it sound more romantic and more attractive and more sexy. But there are probably the ones who think like, all right, who still think like they want to get rid of their accent when they are speaking English. So I have some tips for you today. Now, the first thing you got to know is every language is about phonetics. Now, what is phonetics? It's the study of the sounds of human speech. Now, if you're coming from, each of you is coming from a different language background. So your first language might have different sounds, so which are not very similar in English, or which are not the same with English. So that's the reason. The reason that you're having an accent probably when you're speaking English is because like you cannot switch the sounds, or you cannot transform the sounds or adopt the sounds from English language and remove your language sounds. That's probably the reason. Most likely, that's the reason. But anyways, if you can't do that, I think if you can't remove your accent, that's totally okay, because I believe like speaking fluently and having an accent, these are totally two different things. And if you can speak English fluently and you can still have an accent, that's totally okay. But still, for those who still want to get rid of their accent, I have some tips today. Well, it takes time. First of all, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice to get rid of your accent. And most of you, I'm sure, and I believe that most of you haven't even thought about it, or haven't even noticed or recognized your accent when you're speaking the language. So there was a person who once told me that when you're learning English, you need to adopt a role of an English-speaking person. And when you adopt that role, it will make it a lot easier for you to speak English. Not only you won't feel shy, but you will also feel like you're speaking like a native person. Now, I don't know if that can work for everyone, but I partially agree with that, because every language that we speak, it depends on you. Like, how many languages do you speak? I think every language that you speak, it's like a different person inside of you speaking. So if you're speaking English, you're probably changing a little bit. Maybe your voice is also changing a little bit, because you're adopting a different personality. And I believe that's true. If you can adopt a different personality, like not becoming totally schizophrenic, but like adopting a personality for the good of the language speaking, that can help. That's the first thing. So, and the next thing, you have to recognize your accent. You have to recognize the way you speak when you speak English. So the first thing you need to do is you need to record yourself speaking. And when you record yourself speaking, listen to yourself. Even if you have a terrible voice, just enjoy listening to yourself. When it comes to me, I love listening to myself. Yeah, every time when I text WhatsApp messages or audio, I send audio messages on WhatsApp, I love to listen to my voice messages. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just very, 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 very narcissistic. All right, so you gotta love listening to yourself, and you gotta recognize your own accent. Now, how can you recognize your accent? You have to compare your speech with a native speaking person's speech. And the difference that you see, or the difference that you hear, if you can hear, that's the accent that you have. So, and you also have to recognize different accents. It happens very often, like usually like new learners of English. They go to classes and they study English, and they cannot differentiate the accents the people speak. So if any person would speak in front of them like a fluent English or a little bit better English than they do, they would think like, oh, this person speaks good English, like an Englishman or like an American person. But that's what happens to most of like young learners, new learners. Unfortunately, that also happens when people are in higher levels. They still don't see any difference that people speak different accents. So native speakers speak a fluent English, but they also speak like with an American native accent, like with an American accent, or with a British accent, or with an Australian accent, or with a Canadian accent, and so on. Whatever and however and how many countries, native countries there are. I can't remember them, all of them, like per se now. But yeah, they speak different English with a different accent. All right, so now how you can do this? You have to listen to different people. You can find a lot of information, and you need to pay attention to people speaking. For example, if you listen to, let's say, Russian people, you can recognize their accent immediately. Well, I personally recognize the accent immediately, and I can understand by the accent that this person is Russian, or he comes from Slavic backgrounds or Slavic roots. All right, so here is a piece of Russian imitation of accent. All right, so if a Russian person was talking about this video and introducing the topic of today, he would probably speak, or she would probably speak like this, if she had an accent, or if he had an accent. So today we will talk about how to speak English without an accent, my friends. So that's how you speak with a Russian accent. What you need to do, what are the things you need to do is like to improve or to get rid of your accent when you're speaking English. You got to listen to music and sing along. You have to have some favorite songs. I'm sure you have. Memorize your favorite songs, because like music is about sounds, and language is about sounds also. So when you repeat the song and when you sing along with whatever song is that, or whatever music is that, you try to imitate and repeat the same sounds that you hear, and that's the key. That's the key of getting rid of your accent when you're speaking a language. So I don't know if my Russian imitation of accent was a little good here, but I hope you got it. So, but there's one downside to getting rid of your accent when you're speaking English. Like, now the downside is when you're trying to get rid of your accent when you're speaking a language and you want to speak it without an accent, and the thing happens like it reverses. You start to speak your native language with an accent. I don't know if you had experience with that, but I personally had. And so when you're starting to speak English fluently and with an American or a British accent, you start to speak your own language with an accent, with an American accent or with a British accent, and your people from your country or from your nationality or from your background, from your roots, don't take you for themselves, for one of them. They think like you are a different person from another country because you speak with an accent. That's basically it. All right, once again, like Happy New Year to all of you. So if you want to speak without an accent, just practice. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice. But if you can't do that, don't worry. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you speak fluently and clearly and cohesively so that people understand you, and that's the key.